All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This is the Barn Burner Breakdown. We have a very special guest today. He's the owner and promoter of Combat FC, Mr. Joe Cavallaro. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, Freddie, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. And I'm a big fan of Combat FC. I've been to a couple of the fights, and you put on such an amazing show. It's, such a good production value to it. You guys have amazing fighters on your cards. When did you actually start Combat FC?
So we started just over a year ago with Combat FC. We had another brand at the Shriners also. It was called World Championship Fighting. So I did that for a bunch of years. And then we stopped. What happened is my matchmaker, Rick Caldwell, had adopted a little boy. And he, he was obviously tied up with that. And he said, let's wait on the next fight. He said, let's just wait 6 months or whatever. Let me get the baby settled and all that stuff. And I said, okay. And 6 months went by, and then he adopted another little boy. And then next, one thing after I found a real estate deal I started working on, and another year went by. And 10 years went by, and we didn't do a show. And we never said we were going to leave. We got tied up with life. And, between, work and like I said, I love real estate, so I do a little bit on the side. Not a ton, but I do enough to keep me busy.
Yeah.
And so we didn't do a show for years and years and years. And I'm friends with Dana, and we were talking. I don't forget even where we were, and I said, "Geez, I'd love to get on Fight Pass and start my show again." And he said, "You're going to start with the same brand?" And I said, "I don't know. I was thinking about maybe trying something different, just upping everything. Because back in the day, we used to do it. We did it in a boxing ring. I'll tell you how long ago it was. We had no commission. So
man,
it wasn't even legal to do it. So we did it the 5-rope MMA ring, which is basically a boxing ring with that extra rope.
Yeah.
And but we had some really good fighters come through. We had John Jones fight for us.
Oh, hell yeah.
John Jones actually fought Parker Porter. Parker Porter was a UFC heavyweight.
Yeah.
So they both fought at 205. I think John was 4-0 and Parker was 2-3-0. So it was amazing, to get those guys. And then we had guys like Calvin Cater, who's fighting Aljamain Sterling at UFC 300.
Pumped for that fight too.
We had a whole gang of guys come through over the years. So we knew we wanted to get back into it. And then, like I said, I had the conversation with Dana about doing Fight Pass. And that's the key to kind of turning it from a local, show, like a regional show into like, a lot bigger production, what you see at the last event where we, that show cost about $150,000 to do, believe it or not. It's crazy.
Yeah. I believe it. It was a good show.
We used to do the other ones, we could get away with doing it for $40,000.
Yeah.
But, with the lights, the production truck, and all that stuff, it's, the caliber of fighters that we use, guys that have a lot more experience, and the TV commentators and all that stuff. There's a whole business that I didn't know anything about. It's one of those, and they say, you don't even know what you don't know. Like, that's kind of the way it was when we started. We went in and we're like, how hard could it be? I've been this live TV stuff. I've been watching TV my whole life. I mean, we got really, really lucky where I have a friend that does shows, and he introduced me to his entire team, basically. And so I kind of got a cookie cutter thing where I got a lot of guys come over from his shows. He does that Gamebred fighting championship. Yeah,
the bare knuckle MMA, right?
MMA. Yeah, so he's partners with Jorge Masvidal on that one, and he started Anthony Pettis' show. I forget what they call it. I think it's just Anthony Pettis
Showtime or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he was partners with Roy Jones Jr. and Roy Jones Jr. Boxing, and then he has a couple of shows on his own. He has one called Island Fights, and the guy's been doing it for a long time. He's actually one of the most influential guys that nobody's ever heard of. Right? He's got so many shows and so many platforms that he can put guys on. He has his finger on the whole thing. So
Yeah.
he's a super nice guy, and I had been friends with him before, and I said, geez, I don't know who I'm going to use for production, and he goes, use my guys, and just named about 10 guys that I could use, and we literally went in and figured it out, and now we got it going, thank God.
It's always the guy behind the guy that knows how to get it done, right? And so you got
this guy Dean's the man,
yeah,
he really knows his stuff. So,
and all of that must have just in turn attracted like the high level of talent that you guys have, because especially people know they're going to be on Fight Pass, they want to get on that show.
Yeah, so the first show that we had, we couldn't get guys to fight.
Oh,
right?
really?
So I'm going, you got to remember that it's a completely different generation. Like, nobody takes phone calls anymore. I'm calling people, leaving a message, just nobody's even calling me back, right?
Yeah.
And then I start texting guys at Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm like, hey, we'd love to have you fight. We got this new show called Combat FC. We do it up at the Shriners in Wilmington. And guys are like, hey, I fight for so-and-so. If they'd even get back to me, I was getting responses, hey, I fight for so-and-so, and, it might be a conflict if I fight for you guys. And then most of the guys weren't even getting back to me. So what I did is I took a different approach. I would send guys messages, and I'd say, do me a favor, ask the oldest guy in your gym if they know who I am. Right?
Yeah.
They're asking their coaches, like, okay, he's a good guy. We can trust him. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. That's kind of what we did the first show, and I think everybody saw how much we put into production, and how well the show came off, and how good it looked on TV. And now we can get, we're blessed. We can get anybody we want. So
that's awesome. I run into the same problem with comedy show. I run some comedy shows, and it actually sounds not at that level, but it sounds like very similar the way that works out. It's hard to get a hold of comedians and stuff until they know.
It's the same exact business. I saw the other night, I was at Dunkin' Donuts, and I saw Lenny Clark.
Oh, he's another goat around here too for comedy. He's the man.
Lenny's been around forever. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And he looks like a movie star, right? I mean, he lost 200 pounds, he told me. I don't know if you remember when he was heavy. But
yeah.
I've known him since, he's older than me, but I've known him since I was a kid. Right?
Yeah.
He's been around. And he was young. He was younger than me then,
I think he's on a new show on one of the network shows. I think he just, I can't remember the name of it.
NBC, he was telling me.
Yeah.
He's on NBC. I was pretty pumped to see it because he deserves it. He's a really good guy, and I was pumped. I was at Dunkin' Donuts and I just saw him in line. I'm like, buddy, is that you? Yeah.
Joe, so you've been around, man. You've been around the block. Where are you from originally?
I'm 58, so I've been in Boston my whole life. How small of a place it is. Once you get involved, it's it's a big city, but it's small.
Yeah,
which is nice.
What brought you into the fight business itself? Like what sort of called you to that?
I've been involved since I was young, I guess. I always loved the fights, and I started in karate when I was a kid, and then I moved into I went to a boxing gym. Actually, I went to a regular gym. It was called Nautilus Plus. It was in Revere, Massachusetts. You got to understand, I know this sounds crazy when I say it out loud, there were no gyms. There was no such thing as a gym. If you wanted to work out and you were into that stuff, which nobody was, you'd go to the Y, and there were machines that were on the wall with pulleys.
Yeah. And
nobody worked out, and they came out with this brand new strength and conditioning equipment called Nautilus.
Yeah.
That was the line, the brand. This guy, Jimmy Dakotas, opened a place in Revere. He called it Nautilus Plus. And it was like 100,000 square feet, which is, like 3 or 4 times what a Planet Fitness would be. And he had everything. He had running courts and pool and basketball and racquetball, and he did everything. And the only thing he didn't have was a boxing gym in there. But in the very, very back, we kept asking him, and he put heavy bags in this, basically what was a closet. And I was in there, and I was working out. I was a kid. I was probably 17, 18 years old, and I used to be able to kick because I had done karate all my life, so I could kick really well. And I was kicking the bag, and then when I went to punch it, nobody ever taught me how to throw a punch, so I looked like a little girl. So there was this older dude, and he might as well have been 1,000 years old. But he looks over at me and he's real gruff and he says, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm in the bag. He goes, "Stop it! You're bothering me." He goes, "You want to learn how to box? Show up tomorrow." So I wound up hooking up with him, and it turns out he's 6 years older than me, or 70 years older than me. It was looked like he was that much older, but at the time it felt like he was 1,000 years old. And he's a guy named Joe Lake. And Joe's a super, super nice guy. He's like a brother to me. And we hooked up with another guy in the, I don't know if you remember, back in the 90s, there was a kid named Rosenblatt, Dana Rosenblatt.
Yeah, I went to Marlin Catholic. I think he went to Marlin Catholic. He was a little older than me, but.
Yeah, Dana was a Marlin Catholic guy, and he was just a tremendous fighter. So he kickboxed, and it was very, very apparent very, very quickly that I was never going to make it as a fighter. But I love it, right? I love business, and I love the fights, right? So it combines the best of two worlds. So I got to, be a part of Dana Rosenblatt's entire career, right? I followed everything they did, and I would ask questions and say, "Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that?" We'd argue about stuff with the promoters, about the size of the gloves and the size of the ring and all these different things that you would never really think about. And there's a business behind it, right? Dana was an enormous puncher. He was just a tremendous, tremendous striker. And there's different kinds of gloves, right? So there's Everlast. There used to be a company called Grant. There's all the ringside. There's all a bunch of them, right? So Hayabusa makes them. But there's one company, it's called Reyes, and they refer to them as puncher's gloves, right? So they're the way they're built, they're made with horsehair in them. And all the padding seems to be in the part of the hand where, on your, almost on your wrist. Yeah. So they refer to them as puncher's gloves. The guys that can punch, that's the glove they want to use. Guys like Sugar Ray Leonard that are boxers and throw a million punches, they want to use the biggest gloves they can. So when Marvin Hagler fought Sugar Ray Leonard, that was a lot of the stuff they negotiated, right? Was the size of the ring. So Hagler wanted to fight in a phone booth, right? He wanted to kill you, shoot his hands on you. And Sugar Ray needed to dance around and get away from him, so he wanted the biggest ring they could get. And then they negotiated the size of the glove. So that's the kind of stuff that I would ask questions when Joe was doing Dana's stuff, because not only was he his trainer, but he was his manager. And I would ask him, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" So I kind of learned the business from them, I guess is the best way to put it. And then years later, when I was like 22 years old, I worked at a hotel in Boston. I was a doorman. And I had a buddy of mine that was 18, and he was a bellman, and it was Dana White. Yeah. So we've been friends for 38 years, 35 years or something. He's been one of my closest friends. So when he got involved with the UFC and managing guys, I was obviously, I'd fly out probably 3 or 4 times a year just to go to the big fights. I used to go to all the boxing matches and stuff, and me and Danny used to go do all that stuff. And when he got involved in the UFC, he said, "Hey, you understand this business. You understand how the fight stuff works. You should grab some of these guys and start managing them. And, I'd rather do business with you than anybody. At least we'd be honest with each other, and you can make some money, and, I know I got somebody that's not going to screw me." So I started managing guys, and I got a real good crew of guys that became very, did very, very well in the UFC. So guys like Marcus Davis, who was, number 6 in the world. He went on a 6 or 7 fight winning streak. He was a tremendous boxer, knockout artist. Guys like Kenny Florian, I don't know if you remember Kenny. He's in the Boston. Of course. Guy. Kenny fought 4 times for world titles. Yeah. I had Pat Cote. Cote was he fought Anderson Silva for a world title. He blew his knee out in the fight, but I just got blessed with being able to get these tremendous guys. I was selling technology, so that's where my income was coming from, and I was still making like $80,000 a year managing guys. And it gave me an excuse to travel the fights. And, right. So it was awesome. It was just then Dana being my buddy, so I get the best seats at the fights. I get to hang out. I get, he introduces me to everybody. It really became, a blessing. Like, how'd you like to be involved in your favorite sport, right? And to be able to be a part of it at all. And then to have that kind of access was just the coolest thing in the world. It still is. It's, I've been, just really super blessed to be friends with Dana and to have had the experiences that I've had, and something that I have a passion for.
Yeah, all from asking for a punching bag in the back of a gym too, right? Like
I was in the back of
Yeah.
I was thinking, he looked at me and said, I don't know what you're doing. You know? So, but, you know, I'm still good buddies with Joe now, and he trains a lot of guys that fight for us. And he's 65. He just got his black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow.
He works like an hour a day every day. And 3 days a week he goes and hits the bag. And if you watched him hit the bag, you'd be horrified if he punches so hard.
Oh,
and
I bet.
He does 15 rounds on the bag 3 times a week.
Wow.
65 years old, yeah. Just a savage.
Just an animal, right?
Yeah. He's awesome. He's really a good dude.
Now, fight night. How stressful is it for you, like getting all those pieces? Like, you've done all the work, right? And then it's the night of the fight. Kind of walk me through, what is that sort of like for you?
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's just, it's, you know, everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong before it. The last event, within 10 days of the fight, we lost 7 fights.
Wow.
7. You know, and we probably had 14 on the card. So you know, now we don't even have enough at TV, right?
Yeah.
We're at a point where we're just looking at each other going, we don't even have enough fights to put on TV, let alone, you know, if they go quick, right? You know, it's 35-minute rounds. If it goes, you know, every fight goes to the distance, you get 15-minute fights. But if every fight ends in the first round, you know.
Yeah. It's a short night.
If every one of them was 3 minutes, you'd have 21 minutes worth of fighting.
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be pretty bad. So we scramble to get that done, and Rick does a lot of that. Rick's like my partner. I mean, he's the best at what he does. He's a really super nice guy. He's a great friend. So I've really been blessed to be able to work with them. And then we get a really cool team of people that work with us. You know, and it's everybody's literally doing it for the love of it. I mean, everybody gets paid a little bit, but nobody's getting rich.
Yeah.
You know? So we get this really, really cool team, and then it's just an overwhelming process. You know, I basically take $150,000, and I bet I can make more money back than what I spent. And you know, it's tough. It's a grind, but you know, sometimes we do well. Sometimes we do really well. Sometimes we don't. You know?
Yeah.
You know, for being in the business, it's the same exact business as yours, right? I mean,
yeah.
We're not doing anything different. We're selling tickets, and you know, I tell everybody, you know, when I talk to people, I mean, my background is in sales, right? So, and business, I love the two of them, and you know, nothing happens in life until somebody sells something, right? That's I had an old timer tell me that years ago when I first became a salesman. But we're in the sales business, right? We sell tickets to the fights. Our cheapest ticket's $65. Our most expensive is $250. So we sell tickets, and then we sell advertising and sponsorship. So anybody that wants to get in front of 18 to 54-year-old men, you know, that's our demographic, you know, probably 90% of it. Anybody that wants to get in front of that demographic and wants to do it in a cost-effective way that's associated with the UFC, it's a home run. You know, it's a no-brainer. And then we also sell licensing deals. So we license our TV product. In this case, we license it to the UFC, but we're working on some other deals right now. And I think what happens with that is you start opening up more of a fan base, right? So you start showing your product to more and more people. And you act, the key to what Dana and the UFC do so well is they tell you a story, right? They tell you the story about the fights, right? So-and-so is going to fight so-and-so, and it's going to be this Saturday night, and you can't wait to watch it. And they start telling you that story on Wednesday night every week, because they basically do a show every weekend, right? I mean, they're doing...
Oh, nonstop.
There's 3 on UFC, not on UFC, on ESPN Plus, and then they have a pay-per-view once a month.
Yeah.
So they tell you that story about why you should care about the fight. But the thing, they really gain interest in it. You really care about what's going to happen, so you have to sit down and watch it. And then what they do better than anybody is they deliver. Every time those kids get in there and fight, they fight their asses off. Yeah. And you know, it's amazing, right? And everybody, like, I remember when, you know, guys like when Chuck retired, right? Chuck Liddell. Everybody's like, that's it for the UFC. And there's no way they'll have another pay-per-view style like Chuck. And then, you know, you had Ronda Rousey. Ronda retired. And they're like, oh, you'll never have anybody like Ronda ever again. And then it was Diaz. And then it was, you know, it's constantly changed. And they keep coming up with these stars that are incredible. Yeah. You know, obviously Conor McGregor, right? You had John Jones, and every time they lose somebody, they bring in another guy, and they seem to keep hitting it, with these personalities, and I think that's what we need to focus on as a business, is trying to get the word out to everybody. Like, you've been to the fights and you obviously enjoy it, but if I told you the stories about some of the guys that even in the venue, you see them fighting and you don't even know who they are. We got a kid, he won the bronze medal in the Olympics. He's 6-0 as an amateur and 7-0 as a pro. And, he's a guy that, I don't know if you follow wrestling at all, but he beat Jordan Burroughs. Jordan Burroughs is like Tiger Woods. He's like, Mike Jordan. He's one of the best.
He's the face of wrestling, for sure.
Yeah.
American wrestling.
And Beck went in and beat him 11-1 in a tech fault. They literally stopped the match because he got dominated so much. So he was a bronze medalist for Uzbekistan, and had the way that stuff fell out, as far as the draft, right, or the seeding of the thing. He just got the worst matchups. We were like, what's the absolute worst guy you could get? That's the first guy that got, and then like this. Okay, well, at least that won't happen again. And then the second worst guy was the second guy that he got, and he still won the bronze. He's an incredible athlete, but there's the guy that's going to go to the UFC and he's going to be really, really dominant. So, and he's a wrestling coach at Harvard and he speaks English perfectly. And you probably saw him fight and he was dominant. And you was like, wow, that kid's great. But you didn't hear the backstory behind it, because if you hear the story, now you start following him.
Yeah.
We got this young kid. His name is Artur. He's from Ukraine. I think his last name is Minir, but Rick deals with that. But I've met him a couple of times. He's a real nice kid. He fought for us, and just turned 19 years old. He's a savage. He's going to be. He will definitely be in the UFC, and he will be at the top of his division. And he's still young and he's green, but all the basic stuff, he's a savage. He's just, he just needs to tighten some stuff out. And I see him. He's out at the UFC. PI, the Performance Institute. He's out there training with guys that are getting ready for fights. He trains with Calvin and those guys. Calvin's fighting Aljamain Sterling. I mean, these guys are high level. And this kid is at the very beginning of his career. And if I could tell everybody the story about him, we could figure out a way to market him and then bring him up through, his next 6-7 fights, and then send him to the UFC. And then he becomes like the next John Jones, right? Maybe. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
In a way, his career might not go like that. But I've been in this a long time, and I've seen a lot of young talent, and he's one of the brightest prospects I see. But I don't know if you saw Nate Kari. Actually not Nate. So Nate fought for our 155 belt, and now he's fighting for our 145 belt.
Oh, it's going down.
And the UFC's looking at him.
Okay.
So, they're talking about using him. Our original 135 champ, who had one fight with us, is a guy named Pampas Gregorio. So, another great story.
He's in the UFC now, right?
He's in the UFC
Contender Series, yeah.
Yeah, he did the Contender Series, and he knocked the kid out in 90 seconds, and Dana gave him a contract instantly. But those are the stories that we need to tell, because, Pampas' background is kickboxing. He's a K1 kickboxer. So he's such a high-level kickboxer that they needed sparring for Aljamain Sterling. So they brought him in and paid him out at Serra-Longo. It's a camp out in Long Island.
Yeah, Ray Longo, Matt Serra.
Yeah, they're the best.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Legend. Ray's the nicest guy in the world. So they literally brought this kid Pampas in just to kickbox with Aljamain Sterling and give those guys training and that. But they became friends, and then they started cross-training, and they started teaching him MMA. And he had been, he had some MMA experience, but he hadn't had that high level. Aljamain Sterling was the 135 champ. So he gets brought in to do that. He winds up going in, making friends with them, training with them, comes in, gets an opportunity to fight for our 135-pound belt against Rico De Shula. 2 weeks before that fight, Rico De Shula gets called up to the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, Team Connor.
He fought on Connor's team. It was awesome. He was the last guy to get picked. He winds up with fighting the number one guy and knocks him out in the first round.
Yeah.
You could tell a better story. And then, so we replaced Rico with another guy, another top-level guy. He fights Pampos. Pampos wins the belt, gets called to the Contender Series. Is that thing falling?
No, it was giving me an error message, but you're good. Sorry.
Yeah, so Pampos gets called up to the Contender Series, knocks the guy out 90 seconds in front of Dana. Dana offers him a contract, and he's fighting, I think, March 16th or March 18th or whatever it is. So there's these stories to be told about who these guys are and why we should care about them. But it's very, very difficult to do that in the venue, right?
Yeah.
It's you have to keep the tempo of the show going, right? So we need a TV product that we can introduce regular sports fans, not just, it's like everybody knows who Conor McGregor is. Everybody knows who John Jones is. Everybody knows who Chuck Liddell is. And everybody watches those fights because they're so big and they're so much fun. But how do I get that guy that's, that knows who Conor McGregor is and loves to watch the fights and enjoys it? How do I get him to come to the event and actually spend money? Because I know once we get them, that we never lose them, right? Our shows grow but they just grow at a slower rate than I'd like.
Yeah, of course.
I want to do the Agana Center at BU.
Yeah, beautiful venue. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the goal, right? That's what we're really working towards is building these stars and then being able to get a platform where we can talk about who they are and introduce more people in New England to why they should care about them. And then, the goal from here would be to go to New York, right? So you capture New England, you go to New York, you start doing shows there, then you go to Philly and you do shows there, and then the next thing you know, you're in Atlanta and you're doing a couple shows a year there, and then Tampa, Florida, and, Miami, and, my goal is to do 12 shows a year, so we do one every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, then you get a couple of weeks off, and then you're right back in it again. That's the best part of the business, right? Is I get a lot of downtime, which is nice. I'm not tied to going to a job that I don't want to be at every day. It's something that I really enjoy.
And you love it. You know what I mean? It probably doesn't feel like work. It's like what you want to do.
Yeah, it's just awesome. I've really been blessed. I got real lucky, and I think, with the sales background, like I know how to do it, right? It's the people that just do it for fun, you can only go so far. But I think as a team, we kind of get where we need to go and what we need to do to make it, really something big. And it's just a matter of doing that. So the first year we really just focused on production, right? So how do we dial in that TV production? How do we get it so the UFC is really happy with us? How do we get, the live event operation stuff down? And we've done that. So now we got to focus on making some money, right? We got to really look at this thing and say, how do we go from 2,500 seats to 10,000 seats? And then how do we scale that to, we want to be in New England what the Red Sox are to baseball. We want to be to MMA. There's such a big sports following here in Boston, right? But it's the thing that makes it difficult is, like, at what point does the Boston Globe start covering us? They got the Red Sox,
you know what? That aggravates me so much. Like, even talk radio, you can't talk about MMA with anybody. It's like they won't do it. I don't get it. It's like the most exciting sport ever. Just get on the radio and talk about it. Even when, like, Cater's fighting or Rob Font, somebody from around here, when they have a fight that night in the UFC, they're not talking about it.
No, it's weird. It's just, I don't know. It's such a big thing. So that's some of the stuff that we're concentrating on now. I'm looking at what Dana's doing to be successful, and he's partnering with influencers, right? So he's partners with the Nelk Boys. He's partners with, I don't know all the guys' names, but he ties himself to these guys that are really, really popular in the area. So that's one of the things that I've been focused on. I'm just reaching out to people that are sports celebrities and have, that influence in sports, in general. And I'm trying to get those people to come on board. I'm inviting them to the fights and saying, hey, here's my guest. Come. If you don't like it, you can leave. You don't have to stay. I know once people watch it, it's so much fun. I love it.
You can't not watch. It's the best ever. Going to a fight's amazing.
Yeah. Unless you've been, I tell people all the time, like, if you haven't been to a fight live, or seen a fight live, you've never even seen a fight. completely different than what you think. You'll never look at basketball again.
No.
I mean, you'll never look at say like you get everybody yelling and screaming when the basketball goes in the net. It's like that's it.
I know.
Got excited about that. You see two guys in there putting their all out there. That's when it gets fun. And we get such good talent. Rick picks the best guys. You know what it is? We know all the gyms because the guys that are running the gyms now are guys that used to fight for us.
Yeah.
So we know who's serious, and that's how we can match guys very, very evenly. Is we know the coaches, and we're honest with them, and they're honest with us. We'll say to them, "Hey, where is your kid at?" You know what I mean? He's 3-0, but where is he really at? And you match guys up because there's nothing worse than a mismatch, right? Guys just walked over. That does nobody any good. There's a couple of guys, believe it or not, we had on our first show. One guy was 1-3, and one guy was 1-4. It was one of the best fights of the night. And you'd be like, well, why would you match that fight? Because stylistically, neither one of them, all their losses combined with both of them were all submissions, right? So neither one of them like to go to the neither one of them can wrestle.
They're banging.
What do you think you were going to get out of it? We got two guys that stood and killed each other, and it was great. It was a great fight, and both of them turned their careers around, and they're on in winning ways, and they just needed somebody to give them a shot. Like, stop putting them in with jiu-jitsu guys, right? Yeah. I love jiu-jitsu. I like seeing two really good jiu-jitsu guys going at each other. I don't like to see a really good jiu-jitsu guy with a guy that can't hang with him. It just makes it boring. So.
Yeah, like jiu-jitsu wrestling is cool. Jiu-jitsu is cool, but if it's a striker, jiu-jitsu, like... Yeah, it can be sometimes like a boring fight, right?
Yeah. You gotta really learn that. And Rick does a better job than anybody at that. He matches. It's funny sometimes. You've been around long enough to know you put two wrestlers in with each other and it negates the wrestling, and they wind up standing up and fighting.
Like Kobe Usman.
You think you'd wind up with a wrestle match if you put two of them in there, and that's not the way it works. They cancel each other out. Neither one of them can take each other down, and they wind up standing and banging. That's always fun. So.
Yeah. Now, did I see? Do you guys do also at Combat FC grappling matches, or did I? I don't know if I'm making that up or not.
We just started that, and it was something that I said we weren't going to do. But Rick Hahn, who's a judo Olympian, he fought in Bellator. He won the tournament. Really, really high level guy. Rick retired from fighting. Without taking losses, he said, I'm at a point in my career and focusing on my business and just life stuff. He said, I'm going to retire. So he's a guy that still had a lot of life in him and never really got punched around or anything. And he said, you know what, Joe, I want to come back and I want to take a fight. So we got him a fight. We put him in with another guy that's a real high level jiu-jitsu guy, Jay-Z Calicante. Remember Jay-Z?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
And, he's just a real high level MMA guy that's been around forever. So we matched them up and they fought, and that was fun. And then Rick said, you know what, I want to take another one. So we put him in with a guy named Drew Fickett. Fickett's a guy that's been around forever. Real good jiu-jitsu, but same age as Rick. And something got screwed up and Drew didn't show up to the weigh-ins and whatever, it's just a whole nother story. But so we're standing there the day before the fight. Rick has actually made weight, and he sold 1 million tickets, so all his fans want to come see him.
Yeah.
And I just, he had no fight. And so we're like, what are we going to do? So I said, I was talking to my matchmaker. My matchmaker said, offer him a grappling match, right? That's what he does anyways.
Yeah.
He's a grappler. He's already in shape. I mean, he gets the fight in front of his fans. That was the night that we lost those 7 fights.
Oh, yeah. So you needed something.
Yeah, we needed something. And he got another guy that was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, real high-level guy. And we put the two of them in there together, and they fought one 10-minute round. It's submission only, so you don't get guys stalling.
Yeah, looking for points. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's no points involved, so it's submission only. So it forces guys to actually fight. And it went well. And people, I didn't know how it was going to turn out, what people were going to think about it. I don't want to do those on TV. We did that one on TV because we needed TV. We needed the time for TV.
Yeah.
But we actually booked a couple of them for this event. So we start at 6:30 at night, and then the main fights start at about 7:30. and then we go live on TV, either 8 or 9, depending on what the UFC wants us to do. And you've been there. It goes to 11, 11:15,
Yeah.
11:30. You know, cleaned up, right? Clean the entire venue and give it back to them the way it looked when we got there.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. You know, I used to try to do it myself because I thought I'd save a couple $100, and a couple hundred. But you know, I was so cheap I wouldn't get anybody to do it with me. And now we just hire a bunch of guys. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, so that's a lot easier. And then I just, you know, believe it or not, when I get in after the fights, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
And the fights were live on Fight Pass, so I can rewatch them. So I literally stay up till like 5 o'clock in the morning rewatching, seeing how the TV production went. You know, I'd already seen the fights, but I'd really like to see just how it feels and, you know, what the tempo felt like and all that stuff. Because, you know, obviously we have to keep the UFC happy, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to them originally, you know, Dana hooked me up with the guy that I did the deal with. And I said to him, you know, what are the keys to success? Like, what does success look like from your standpoint for us? And he said, I need more people to subscribe to the network, right? So more people subscribing to Fight Pass, more people that are on Fight Pass actually watching your shows. And I need more fighters to come from your organization and come into ours. So that's kind of what we focus on, right? You know, how do we get guys, what can we do to drive viewership for them? And one of the things we do is we usually do a prelim, or I don't know, prelim would probably be a bad word, but like we do a couple of fights live for free on UFC Fight Pass Facebook and UFC Fight Pass YouTube. So their Facebook page has 9.1 million people on it. So
wow.
People that know what, and that's UFC Fight Pass page,
yeah.
not UFC. UFC is probably 10 times that, 20 times that, who knows? But that's 9.1 million people that know what Fight Pass is. So if we can get people to sit down and actually start watching the fights for free, there's a good chance that they'll tune in for the $10 a month. You know, a lot of them already have it, but the goal is to get them to transfer back, you know, into watching live. So that's something that we do.
And you get a lot with the Fight Pass membership too. Like you get the fight catalogs, Pride catalog, Strike Force. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I watched Jeremy Horn, Chuck Liddell last night.
Oh,
I didn't realize
they fought twice, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I saw the first one, and it was at 199 pounds. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Horn, like, out wrestled him a little bit, but Chuck outstruck him, and then he hit him with head and arm triangle.
Yeah.
Choked him unconscious.
Choke Chuck. Yeah, yeah.
Which was crazy. So he's, you know, like it's, you know, I tell you, it's really cool to be part of, like, you know, Dana's hooked me up with everybody. Like, Chuck's a great friend.
Oh, nice.
I went to all his fights. I went to all the after parties and did all the craziness. It was just, you know, he was such a good guy, so much fun to be around. You know, it's such a tremendous fighter. Those are still some of my favorite fights ever.
That's like the era that really, where I sort of came into watching UFC and MMA, was like Chuck and Tito. Like that was the rivalry, and then Chuck and Randy, like those fights. Like there was never a boring Chuck Liddell fight. Like he had the look. He was on. I remember that TV show Entourage on HBO. He was on Entourage. I remember seeing on that. Like I was like, Chuck's the man.
You know the whole story with that Entourage, right?
No.
So Entourage is based. The executive producer was Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, Mark Wahlberg. Right?
It was based on Mark's life.
Yeah.
Right? So
okay, I have heard that. Yeah.
Boston, they were from New York, and it was him bringing all his idiot buddies along for the ride, and his brother, right? So
yeah.
I don't know anything about Mark Wahlberg's brother. I'm not calling him an idiot. But, you know, in the film, they kind of take
Johnny Drama.
Johnny Drama kind of a nut. But the whole thing is based on Ari Gold, right? So Ari Gold's like a big thing. Ari Gold is actually Ari Emanuel.
Oh, okay.
That's who they based the character of. He's the guy that put the deal together to buy the UFC from Zuffa.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Frank. Yeah, so it's crazy when you look back at it. But you know, Ari's a shrewd motherfucker. You know?
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's a good dude. He's actually a real good dude. He's always been really nice to me. I don't know him real well, but he's always, you know, goes out of his way to say hello to me and stuff because he knows I'm buddies with Dana. But it's really cool. So I'll walk you through it a little bit more. This is how in tune these guys are, right? How connected they are, right? So Ari Emanuel's brother is a guy named Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel is Obama's chief of staff.
Oh, wow.
So
that talk about connected.
He was the mayor of Chicago, right? He ruined Chicago.
Yeah.
He was the worst politician in the world. And, it's funny because Dana and Ari couldn't be on further away from each other politically.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
When they asked Dana to endorse Trump, when Trump had asked him to endorse him, I can't imagine that conversation with Ari saying,
yeah,
I'm going to endorse Trump at the Republican National Convention, and his brother was the chief of staff to Obama. I don't know how much further away from each other they could be politically.
It still worked out for Dave. Dude, every time, I love when Trump comes out to a UFC event, like the place goes nuts. It is awesome. Like that is, I would say, one of the strongest things about the UFC and sort of what you were talking about, how like they make you want to watch. Like there's a storyline in place. Even like Dana himself is just an amazing storyline. He comes out after every event. He's doing interviews. Like he'll say whatever he wants. Like it's just he is the reason why most people watch UFC. Like it's amazing.
He's a big part of it.
Yeah, I love when Trump watches it. Is like him, and it's always like Kid Rock or something like that. The place goes nuts. It's awesome.
And then, the thing that's cool about Dana, the way he handles it, he's like, I don't care what you believe, right? Don't tell me what to believe.
Yeah.
Like, do your own thing.
The way it should be.
That's my philosophy too. It's like, I obviously have, everybody has strong political opinions on what they do. And I got a kid that interned for me, and I just, he's a real good kid, but he's young. He's 22 years old, and he's been fed a line of bullshit from me. And, I tell him, I go, this is my thought on this. And I send him videos of stuff, and he's slowly turned around. He's like, I go, check a look at this video and see what you think of it and let me know, right? And then he calls me back, and he goes, I had no idea that was happening. And I'm like, it's... You got to kind of look at both sides of it, right? You're in college, you're not hearing both sides of it,
Yeah.
Which is insane. It's insane. It's like people don't want to. Like I believe in absolute freedom of speech. I think you should be able to hate anybody you want to hate. Like if you want to hate Italians, hate Italians, right? I'm Italian. Don't matter to me, right? You want to hate black people. You want to hate Irish people. You want to hate. Anybody. It's like, that's your right to hate them, right? You deserve a beating for it. Somebody should punch you at it. But that's the consequence to, you know what I mean? The consequence shouldn't be being blackballed and losing your, get canceled and all that shit. You should get your head punched in. Somebody should, if they don't like the way you do it, you want to be a hot ass.
Put them in a cage.
A lot of guys need a beating, but the government shouldn't be telling us who you should vote for, or who you should back, or who you should. Let's keep that. And I love when Dana says that stuff,
Yeah.
And he just, because he has such a big influence on such a big, a generation of kids. And again, he's telling them, I don't care what you think, right? Just don't tell me what to think. Like, do your own thing, like that vaccine thing, right? I'm all set, right? I made my mother get it. My mother's 80, right? Cool. She can get the vaccine, right? If you like the vaccine, take mine. You know what I mean? I don't care. But don't tell me I can't fly someplace and I can't go to work and I can't do all this shit because you want me to get it. I didn't sign up for that shit.
Yeah, you want a choice of your own life. You know.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's hard sometimes as a comedian when you're trying to navigate like because your ultimate goal, which is the same goal you have whenever you put on fights, is like you want for people to go out and enjoy themselves and like be entertained. And it's, when you're trying to make something out of nothing, like sometimes you're throwing stuff at the wall, you're trying to see what works and what doesn't work. So it's like, I think sometimes people forget that, like everyone's human and you're trying to like figure that out.
They've ruined it. You can't even say, you gotta be at that Dave Chappelle level that you can say whatever you want because you don't care.
You got to either be at his level or my level where you're so low they still don't care.
I was watching something and they were talking about the kid got invited. I forget who it was. I was watching the show, but one of the colleges invited them to do the comedy, and they went in and did it. They said they pulled them off stage and said, "Hey, you can't say that."
Oh, really?
I'm a comedian. I can say anything I want to. Making fun of crazy shit that's my job, right? That's exactly what I'm supposed to do is call out craziness. It's weird.
Yeah, but that's I guess the world we're living in. I think I'm just too old to change. Like whatever my belief is, my belief. I'm like I'm 40. I got a kid. I got a family. I'm like I don't want anybody telling me anything. Like
no, that's the way it should be. These kids are getting snowed. They're in big trouble.
Oh.
We'll leave that aside. But, it's funny. You were talking to me about the way the fights go, and I talked to Dana one time, and I was complaining about something. I was like, this sucks. I'm just, it just sucks, having to do this, deal with this, and whatever. And he's like, dude, go to work for somebody, right? Just, you don't want to be the guy that makes the decisions and handles all the problems. Go to work for somebody. He goes, it's a privilege to get to do, to get to ultimately do your own thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's not as fun as it looks, right? But at the end of the day, like Dana said to me, it's like I get up every single day, and everybody brings me every single problem in the company, and I get to fix it. Like I don't have to go to somewhere that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And it changed my way of thinking about it. It's just like when those problems come up, we were talking about, when something goes wrong, it's like, with Rick and me, we don't even argue about who's right and who's wrong, and we just fix it.
You fix it.
And then if we want to talk about it afterwards, we talk about it afterwards, and 90% of the time, we don't even talk about it. We're just like, okay, we can't do that again.
Yeah.
This is what we do to fix it, but we don't complain about it. Like, I'm all set complaining, and Dana really kind of was one of the people that taught me that, was like, you want to do your own thing, and you don't want to have to report to anybody, and you want to create something, and you hit the nail on the head talking about, like, the money is fine. I'm not making a ton of money. Like, I'm not getting rich right now. I think there's a big opportunity to do that, but, we've eaten all year. I haven't missed a meal. We've done 5 events. I haven't missed a meal. I got a new car. I get, it's going good. We got a real brand. It really feels good. It looks good on TV. It looks good in the thing. But at the end of the day, I love when people tell me that they had a good time at the event, like you with comedy, right?
Yeah.
It's, you do that whether you made money or not. I would still do it. I just love it. It's like comedy, whether they pay you or don't pay you, and whether you make it huge someday or whether you don't. It's still what you do.
It's a rush. Like some people say also, it's like you go up on stage, you get a rush, right? But I almost think it's sort of more like what you're saying. I'm just getting to do what I love to do.
Yeah.
And like, that's a rush. You know what I mean? Like nobody's telling me what to do when I'm up there. It's my decision on how this is going to, it may go good. It may not go not so good, but it's up to me.
It's all you.
Yeah.
It's all you. You get that's part of the thrill of doing it, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the balls to do what you do. I'm not even pretending that I would, but it's just really cool to be able to do that. And then when it does work, what's better, right? When I do those fights and I leave, I'm on a high for days afterwards. I'm like, that was so cool, so much fun. And then to be able to I love young people. Like I relate more to young people than I do to older people. Like I'm 58. I'm just I don't hang out with people my age. I love that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I never knew that I like teaching people, right? So I like working with those guys and talking to them about. I talk to a lot of the young guys about real estate, and because it's the only thing that I really understand, right? It's like I physically understand the real estate game, and I can look at a property, and it's not like the stock market where you can't see it, you can't touch it, right? Real estate, I can touch, I can feel, I can, I kind of get it. So I tell all the guys all the time, like, save your money, man. 10 get these guys at 22 years old that are making, that are in the UFC, and they're making, $60,000 for a fight, $50,000 for a fight, and then they get bonus. Like, you take some of that money, put it down on a multifamily that pays for itself.
Yeah.
And then when you're, in 30 years, when you're 52, your first house is paid for in cash. And then if you buy one every couple of years, next thing you know, you're
doing all right.
Your life. I got a buddy of mine that, when he was in his 20s, he was selling technology, and I got into it later, but he was a really bright guy, really, really good kid. And he had an uncle or something that was not that much older than him that didn't have any money, and my buddy was making money, and he said to him, I want you to get involved in this real estate stuff with me. We're going to buy multifamily houses. So he's like, I don't know anything about that. He's 20-something years old. Like,
yeah.
I don't know anything about that shit. I don't want to get involved. And that sounds like a lot of work, which it isn't. But he said, I don't know. And his uncle got him to put the money in, and they wound up buying houses, and they just focused on 2 areas, Newton and Wellesley. Oh. He's like, my kids won't work. He goes, he had 18 units himself, 18 properties himself, probably 3 families in each one of them. He goes, my children's children won't work. We've made so much money in real estate. And, like I said, now we're pushing 60, right? All those properties that he bought when he was 20,
they're still there.
All paid
and paid for.
They don't owe any more money on them. They collect all the rents from them, and the value of the property is through the roof.
Yeah.
So I try to tell the guys, I'm always telling them, you just take a little bit of the money, put it aside, pay attention to your credit, and I like doing that stuff. I like working with them. These kids are all mostly, it's weird, the difference between boxing and MMA, and I love boxing. It's my first love. But in boxing, everybody's fighting to get out of something, right? You always hear the tough stories about how people came up and they're trying to fight to get out of something. Nobody's got a tough story in MMA because your parents sent you to jiu-jitsu. It's $190 a month, right? If you didn't have money, you wouldn't be involved in martial arts.
Yeah.
Well, most everybody, right? I mean, there's exclusions in different stories, but most guys have been brought up and gone to college or wrestled, all those different things. That it's not like anybody's fighting to get out of any dire situation. So most of the kids are pretty smart, anyways. And it makes it easier. But I love it. I love the fights. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciate that too. I mean, sometimes it is easy, and I'm 100% guilty of not doing the right things with money. But sometimes, honestly, just one other person telling you to just think about this in another way does help, for sure.
Yeah, instead of buying a new car, put the money down on a property that pays for itself. Even if you break even on it for the next 20 years,
yeah.
At some point, you're gonna own it. You're gonna, once you own it, it's there's all the depreciation and all the craziness, but I don't know. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So it's my other passion,
Yeah.
Do
you get more excitement from trying to okay, tell me what you would rather be doing. Trying to make a deal to put a show together in Miami, or the actual the night of the fight, trying to work stuff out for production? You more so you want to make the deal?
Way more, right? So I did sales my whole life, and it turns out I don't even like sales. I like deals.
Yeah.
I like getting in the trenches and figuring out how to make something work more than I like the sales end of it, right? Because at the end of the day, it still is all sales. But yeah, the day-to-day operation stuff I hate. The only reason why I do it is because we don't make enough money to hire somebody.
Yeah.
But once we start making some more money and I can hire somebody full time, I'll push all those operational things off to somebody else. I have to do them now, and I just started the last event. I started writing stuff down that I do. So this many weeks out we need to do this. This many weeks out we need to do that, and then I write down the passwords of all the applications that we use and where to go and what to do. I started writing all that stuff out because I definitely want to get out of that end of the business.
Yeah,
it's something that I'm not particularly good at. I get away with it because I'm hyper focused on it, because if I don't, nobody else is going to do it. I have to do that stuff. But it's not something that I enjoy. I do it. I've been doing it for a bunch of years, but I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Hire somebody else. Tell them this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
I like the big picture stuff. I like the deal part of stuff. You know, and the sport is so crazy right now. I mean, it's it's in its infancy. You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna get bigger.
It's so. It doesn't seem like it is or it should be, but it really is. Like it's the youngest of all of these sports. Like it's the oldest, but it's also the youngest. Like fighting is fighting, but as far as like that NFL sort of NBA level that the UFC's at right now are getting to, like it's so new. It's so new.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to somebody about baseball, right? Do you watch baseball?
I do. I'm guilty.
You're the last.
Am I the last one?
I see no. I couldn't play. I was terrible, so I have no appreciation for it at all. Not that I can fight either, but I'm not trying to say I can fight, but at least I understand it. I appreciate it, right? But baseball, I just don't appreciate it, and I feel like. Who is going to sit through a 9-inning game? Kids, you sit down at a TV for 9
I know.
innings.
It can be rough sometimes. It was better this year with some of the rule changes, but more so, like so when I lived in Lowell, I lived near the Lowell Spinners Stadium, which is like the Red Sox AAA or whatever. Yeah. And like I would just go to a game and I could just sit there and just watch it and just like not think about anything and just like chill out. I don't know what it is about a baseball game.
Yeah, my dad loved it, and I like listening to it. Like if I don't have to sit and actually watch it, I just kind of listen. But it's so slow. It's just and the new generation of kids with all these video games and all this instant clicks and likes and pictures and posters and videos, always keeping them these 15-second videos, keeping them entertained. It's like really tough to compete with that. And I think worst case scenario, you see a 15-minute fight, right?
Yeah.
And you're telling them a story to get them interested, and then 90% of the time it ends in the first 2 rounds. So it's easy. It's just quick stimulation, and it's extremely exciting, right? It's just you're seeing crazy knockouts and beautiful submissions and all this stuff. I think there's a generation of kids that aren't going to be able to sit through a baseball game. I'm not saying baseball's going away. Don't quote me.
Joe says baseball's over.
I think they're doing all right. They don't have to worry now. But,
especially the Dodgers.
For a younger generation, it's like, this is it. Like these kids, you don't hear guys. Like Marcus Davis is a guy that I trained with and I managed his entire career. And I've been with Marcus since he was 17. He was 17 one-on-one as a pro boxer. And then he went into MMA and fought in the UFC. He did the 2nd season of the Ultimate Fighter show. And he got beat first. He took the first fight. It was his pick. He picked the toughest guy, a wrestler, and got stopped. And then they cut him from the UFC. But he went back and he said, I'm going to take this serious. And he was still in his 30s, early 30s. And he said, I'm going to take this serious and I'm going to learn how to do jiu-jitsu and I'm going to figure out how to wrestle and I'm going to do this. And he wound up being number 6 in the world. Tremendous career. And he's a huge knockout artist. He knocked out 1 million guys. And, but you don't see that anymore. You don't see guys that are boxers coming to MMA. You see MMA guys going
into boxing, right?
So, there's no such thing as a jiu-jitsu guy anymore, or a boxer, or a wrestler. That you do it all, and that's why you see the level of competition. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if you put, some of these guys that were stars back in the day against some of these kids that are stars today at the same age, the same, spot in their career. I think the kids nowadays, it'd be tough to beat them. It'd be really tough to beat them because they're so well-rounded.
And they're more athletic, too, now. Like some guys that maybe would be going into another sport see the opportunity in MMA and are sort of, drawn to it. Now, I was actually thinking when you were talking earlier, have you guys ever been in talks with, like, trying to get anything simulcasted on radio? Like the calls for the fight?
I never thought about that. I don't know where you would do it. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I don't know either. I was just thinking, like, because I'll listen. I like listening to when you were talking about baseball on the radio. Like, I would 100% listen to an MMA fight, especially if I was driving in the car or something like that. That might be kind of cool.
Yeah, I would listen to it myself. I don't know how it would translate. How it would scale, like how many people would listen to it, I guess is the best way to put it. But
Yeah.
I would listen to it.
So does UFC do that on like Sirius or anything like that?
No, so you know what they do is like remember Jens Pulver?
Yeah.
Little Levi.
Oh, Little Levi. I love Jens Pulver. Yeah.
Yeah, he does like a Twitch. Is that what they call it, Twitch?
Yeah, Twitch. Yep.
Yeah, so he does like I don't know if they show it or if it's just him talking about it. I'm very surprised if they showed it, because why would you pay for the pay-per-view when you could just watch it on Jen Pulver's feed? So I think it's just him talking about the fights. But he's got a big following. He's on Fight Pass.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I usually, like, sometimes I'll put in, like, if I'm driving and the fights are on, you could just plug your phone in, I guess, and just listen to it through ESPN app or something like that.
What do they call it? Fight Companion?
They do a Fight Companion.
And Schaub and those guys do it.
Yep.
So there's, I mean, if they're doing it, Joe ain't doing anything that don't make money.
No.
He's killing it. I'm so happy for him. He's such a good guy.
Yeah.
And he's just, he's the best at what he does. He's just so far outside of what everybody else does. Like the numbers that they do, that compared to like what Fox does or what CNN does or what, like they don't even touch the ratings that he gets,
Not even close.
They don't even go near it. It's just amazing. I want him to have Trump on. I want him to have, I think he should have everybody on. I think he should spend, I mean, who am I to tell him what to do, but I think he should spend 2 hours with each person and talk to them about what they really believe and what they don't. And he's such a big platform now that he, I just think it'd be awesome. I know, I don't know, he had Bobby Kennedy on there.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I listened to that for sure.
Yeah, I listened to it. He was good. He's a little left for me, but he's, I don't know, he says a lot of stuff that's right on point.
Yeah. It's just, I think, nice to hear anybody, I'm sure whatever candidate was on, getting to hear them talk for 2 hours, you get a good sense of if they're just a good person or if they're full of, full of crap.
There's only so much talking points that they can get away with saying. I mean, they say the same thing over and over again. At some point, in a 2-hour conversation, they have to come up with something of substance, right?
Yeah.
And they'll either expose themselves or they won't.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something I saw the other night, kind of off topic, but I just forget who the fighter was that said, if you watch me fight long, I think it was Matt Brown, the immortal Matt Brown.
Oh, I love Matt Brown. Yeah.
He's one of my favorites. So, and he said, if you watch me fight long enough, I'll show you who I am.
Yeah. Wow, what a quote.
Yeah, what a powerful thing to say, It's he wasn't trying to be a braggart,
Yeah.
He just said, if you watch me fight long enough, I'll show you who I am. And he's such a savage,
Yeah.
I love that stuff. That's what I love about the fights, I remember years ago there was a guy named Glenwood Brown. He was a welterweight. He fought Vinny Pazienza. You remember Paz?
Yeah, Vinny. Dana Rosenblatt fought Paz too, right?
Yeah, Dana fought him twice. Yeah, so he was fighting Paz, and Paz was on his way down, and Glenwood Brown was on his way up, and they interviewed Pazienza, and he said, they said, what do you think? And he said, he's not willing to lose what he just said it dead matter of fact, not trying to be an asshole, not trying to be a braggart or anything. He just said, he's not willing to lose what I'm willing to lose just to win.
Yeah.
He just said it matter of fact, like, that was it. Like, he's not willing to lose what I'm willing to lose just to win. And that's the way the fight went, right? He was such a beast of a guy, Vinny. I actually texted with him the other day. I don't talk to him that often, but I was texting with him the other day, and he was one of my favorite fighters ever. 5-time world champ, I was a little bummed out when he beat Dana the first time, but then Dana came back and got him the second time. So.
Yeah.
But we were at that point in Dana's career, and I was so new to fighting that Dana was murdering guys. I mean, he was killing everybody. He was knocking guys out that were really good and beating legends and doing all this stuff. And we went down to that fight, and he got stopped. And I remember being we were down in New Jersey, and I remember being there, and he got knocked out, and I was like, I don't understand. What happened,
Yeah.
He was just beating so many guys. It was the last thing that I ever expected was to see him lose, right?
Yeah.
And, that's Vinny Pazienza, right? Dana came back and beat him and did really well, and Dana's my boy, but it was just crazy. I never expected to see that. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about the fights is you never know.
Anything could happen, right?
I watched, who the hell was it the other night? Gary Rodriguez and somebody. I forget. And they fought, 15 minutes, whatever it was, 25 minutes, whatever the hell it was. And Rodriguez dropped down and hit him with a reverse elbow. And
Oh, that was the Korean Zombie, right? The Korean Zombie fight. Amazing. He was losing that fight, I thought, too. And
he was really losing that
yeah.
fight, and then he hit him with that thing.
Clipped him.
Everybody thought it was a headbutt.
Yeah.
And, that was amazing. I spend a ton of time watching UFC Fight Pass. We're not just on.
Oh, same here. It's awesome.
I don't have Netflix. I don't have any of that. Sorry, I actually have it, but I don't pay for it. And I don't watch it. I steal my brother's. But
it's, I got a young kid at home, so it's hard to watch anything that isn't either Bluey or Miss Rachel. But as soon as that kid goes to bed, I'm like, all right, let me get Fight Pass on and watch some fights.
That's awesome. Who's the kid that lives up the street from me? His parents grew up. Gary Goldman?
Oh, comedian Gary Goldman? Yeah.
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 I was shooting the shit one day. I'm sorry. I was out front with the dog where I'm living in West Peabody, and he came walking by, and I'm like, that kid looks familiar. And we started talking, and he said, I'm from New York, and my parents are getting older. And I said, what do you do in New York? And he said, I'm a comedian. I said, really? And then I looked at him, and he said, yeah. And I said, I know who you are now that I look at you.
Yeah.
But he's a good dude.
No, I don't know him personally. I know his work, though. He's very funny.
Yeah,
very funny guy.
Very funny guy, yeah.
Yeah.
You know who else I'm buddies with is Bobby Kelly.
Bobby Kelly, yeah. I don't know him personally, but he's, I was a big fan of Opie and Anthony back in the day. That was like one of my favorite radio shows. So I got to know him a little bit through that, and then his podcast and stuff like that.
Got into the UFC before anybody.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, they used to come on. They would always put Jim Norton, I also really like his podcast with Matt Serra, Unfiltered, but he would always get put in like a leg lock, or he'd let John Jones punch him, or something like that.
Yeah,
but
that was when we talk about how to grow this thing, like that's the stuff that we need to get involved with, right? And that UFC has always done a really good job of that, and Dana is doing it now with all these influences. Is getting other people behind it, and then they tell you a story. Because I can only tell it so many times, right? I don't have a reach enough, to talk to enough people to make it a huge difference. But by getting in with some of these people that are involved in that stuff. Back in the day when we had World Championship fighting, we'd bring all the Celtics, we'd bring the Patriots, we had Rondo and Big Baby, and Perkins, and all those guys used to come, and then we feed that stuff out. This is back when newspapers were still big. We'd feed that stuff out to the newspapers, and they'd take a picture of everybody in the fight, and I'd send it to the Herald, and then they'd put a thing out there saying, "Hey, World Championship fighting was last night. These guys were." So that's the kind of stuff we got to focus on this year. To really grow the brand.
It's so hard. It's I don't know if hard's the right word for it, but like when you put so much into something and you're trying to grow it so bad, and sometimes it's like you're just trying to find that little thing, right? That just like people want to watch. Like even with like this show or some of my other like comedy stuff, I'm always like, what's that clip? That little like soundbite I can put out that is gonna like catch people's attention and make them want to watch it more or tell their friends. I know.
You never know what that is.
Oh, it's funny. The last show, I don't even think it's up yet, but I put a little clip with this other comedian who I know from the area, Voss, is on, and the clip actually did really well, but it was like the stupidest little clip about him saying like his 4 R's of comedy, but his first one was right. I'm like, that's not an R, it's a W. And like, it was so stupid, right? But it got like a ton of views, like so many views. I was like, how did like all this thoughtful stuff? I think I'm doing it. It's just the stupid little clip. Oh my God.
Are you involved with any of these social media influencer guys, the comedians?
No, I sort of just like go to the clubs, like do my sets, and like am friendly with comedians, but I've really been focusing on trying to do my own stuff.
The guys that do the skits and stuff online that I don't know if they're doing comedy shows, but they're real popular online.
Yeah, I know a few people around the Boston area that have like skit accounts and stuff like that. I'm trying to think. Alex G. Alex, I'm gonna mess up his last name, but Alex G. He has some good skits that he puts out.
Yeah.
He also does. He put out a good special about me. I think it actually came out on 420 because it was a set that he did in a room where, like, everybody could light up and smoke. So it was, a good time. And so he puts out some good skits. There's a lot of good Boston-based guys that come up with like funny stuff.
There's a girl that I like. I couldn't tell you her name, but she's funny as a bastard. She's just a riot.
Yeah.
She's always doing something. Crazy. There's a couple of guys we should hook up afterwards, and I'll turn you on to them. A couple guys that I know that might be able to. You guys might be able to drive together and do something.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff that I got to really focus on, is just trying to get the word out. When I first came back and did the fights, obviously social media is the thing that you got to be on.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll buy some social media for this next fight, and we'll throw it out there. So we have a ticketing company that we use. So I have a dedicated link that I can tie back to all the ads that I run, so I know exactly what comes in.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll just take a small bet. I'll put $3,000 up, right? And I'll just run a bunch of ads and see what we get back. And, like, how high could it be, right? It's Facebook and Instagram, right? It's easy. So I spent $3,000 on the ads, and we had the link that tracked back to it. And I got back exactly $0.
Yeah.
Not one ticket sold off that link after I spent $3,000. So
yeah.
I was like, okay, I screwed this up. So
I've done the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I've hosted.
That has a show. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I host a game show, a comedy game show, and I'll usually do the tickets through Eventbrite. But when I have a show coming up, I'll put a video together and I'll put it on, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And I've been paying for ads as well, and I haven't gotten like much a return whatsoever. So
I got $0 back on $3,000.
Yeah, there are some people that do it right, and they, I guess, know how to do it. The producer of this show actually is really good at that kind of stuff. He does a lot of he has a lot of like hip hop artists that he works with. So he manages some R&B and hip hop guys, and I think they actually do more through their like YouTube ads than like Instagram, really. But he's a little more savvy.
So we did the first one. I did it myself. I'm like, how high could it be? So obviously it didn't work. Then I talked to a buddy of mine that's got a show on Fight Pass. And I was talking to him, and he said, "No, we kill it. We absolutely kill it." He said, "It's you got to stick with it. You have to do it." So excuse me. I searched online for social media buying or some type of words around that, and the next day, I went on social media, and whoever saw me search on Google for that started marketing to me, and they had an ad, and they said, "We can help you grow this part of your business and this and that," and then I clicked on it, and I watched it for 2 seconds, and I really didn't pay any attention to it, and I shut it off. And then the next day, I was on like YouTube or something, and the same ad came up, and I was like, okay, and I didn't click on it. Then like the next day, I saw another ad, and I clicked on it from the same company, and the guy said, "Hey, 2 days ago, you looked at my video. I'd love to get you involved, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, wow, this guy is really doing what I want. This is what I want somebody to do for me. So I called him up, and I said, "What's the deal?" And he said, "We can do it for you." We went through all the stuff. We walked through the numbers of what we were doing for tickets and all that stuff, and how many tickets we had to sell on top of what we're doing right now. And he said, "I can sell another 2,000 tickets." So like I said, the cheapest ticket is $65. The most expensive is $250. So minimum another 2,000 tickets is $130,000.
Yeah,
that would be profit, right? We're covering the show now. So I said to the kid, "Listen, if you could sell another 1,000 tickets, another 2,000 tickets." I said, "How confident are you?" He said, "Absolutely, 100%. No doubt about it, I can sell them." I said, "Okay, walk me through it." He said, "You pay for the ads." He goes, "You have to come up with about $8,000 to pay for the ads." And I was like, "Okay, I don't, if you bring in $165,000,
it's covered, yeah."
Ads, right? So he says, "I get $10,000 up front, and then I get $5,000 a month for 3 months." So I was like, okay, how confident are you that you can actually sell these tickets? And he said, "I'm 100% confident." He goes, "No doubt about it. We will sell 2,000 tickets. I promise you." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll tell you what we'll do." I said, "Rather than argue about it, and go back and forth, me try to beat you up and stuff, let's just agree that you'll do it for $20,000. And he wanted 25, and he's like, "Yeah." I'll bite. I'll do that. So I said, okay, cool. I said, I'll give you 15% of whatever you sell in tickets, and we'll go from there. And he goes, I don't know what you mean. I go, you know what I mean.
Yeah, you sell them all.
I said, you sell 2,000 tickets. I said, you'll make 15% of 165 grand or whatever the number was, you know.
Yeah.
And or 130 grand if it was 65 tickets if they just bought the cheapest ones. So he said, you know what, Joe, I'll take the bet. I'll do it with you. So he went and did all this stuff. I had him and Rick on a call together. Rick, real technical guy, and he understood what he was trying to do. And they're talking about pixels and repurposing and this, you know, data-driven audiences and all this, you know, all these words, buzzwords. And he said, I think it might work. You know, maybe these guys will do it. So we spent $8,000 on ads. Again, we tracked it back to a specific link that I could tell exactly what came in, and he wanted $25,000 to do that, and plus the $8,000 we spent, and I didn't have to pay him because he was going to take a percentage. We sold $1,800, so I spent $8,000 to make back $1,800.
Yeah,
and he didn't get paid at all.
Yeah,
and just I don't know how to do it. I really don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there that knows,
I'm sure there is. It's not me, but they're out there.
CombatFC.tv.
Yeah.
If you're willing to take the bet, I'm willing to take the ride with you.
Yeah. We'll share, whoever it is, we'll share them because I need their help too.
We got some work for you.
I know. Oh my gosh. I got the cheaper iPad with less storage room, which now I'm regretting. So now I'm like, I get these notifications. I'm like, oh, I got to delete some videos. So it doesn't, I have plenty of room. But I don't know. I should probably be more technologically savvy as well.
I cheaped out one time. We bought cameras for the fights when we were World Championship fighting. And I said to the guy, I want to buy one of the digital cameras. And the guy said, nobody's using digital. That's never going to catch on.
Yeah.
And I bought an old film version. I spent like $6,000 on it. It was like 2 days later, everybody I talked to, they were like, why would you not buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That thing's useless. I literally have that John Jones fight with Parker Porter that I've never put out.
Yeah.
Because it's on a digital tape.
Oh, yeah.
And I never converted it. So I got, I think we did 11 events under the World Championship fighting name, and I don't have any of this stuff digitized.
You should, if you digitize that and put it out, I guarantee that'll get views, and that would be a good way to promote your show, being like, we've had this fight on our shows and whatever.
Yeah, I was waiting to see what John does next and see how he looks as a heavyweight.
Yeah.
You'd like to get him on his last fight and put it out,
or
his last fight or something. I don't know.
Oh, I know. That was devastating when he got injured. I was so bummed about that. I wanted to see him and Stipe so bad.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters. I think he's the greatest fighter that's ever.
I agree. The people he's fought, the way he's won, he's just unbelievable.
Yeah, they talk about other guys, and you're like, I don't know.
Also, I mean, Anderson Silva for me is up there too. Anderson Silva was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his knockouts are amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have
I watched the Lee Murray.
Oh, Lee Murray.
Silva fight last night. Yeah, I saw a bit of that one.
Yeah, that's
again on Fight Pass.
Lee Murray actually. I mean, I thought Anderson won the fight, but that was a closer fight than I think people really talk. That was pre-UFC, but I think that was before you. That was Cage Warriors or something like that.
Yeah, Cage Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good fight. That dude, I talk about a story. That guy is wow. They're gonna make a movie about him.
I negotiated his deal with the UFC.
Oh, really?
So Pat Miletich called me up and said, I got this kid that's in the middle of a deal with Joe Silver, and they're not happy with what they get because they wanted to have an exclusive where they couldn't get cut from their contract, right? So typically what happens is you do a 3 or 4 fight deal, and the UFC can cut you anytime they want. That was his big thing, is he didn't want to do that. And I went and negotiated on his behalf, and I had never met him, and he was working with Pat, and then all that shit happened, and we never. So and never got paid, he never fought. So, but it was interesting to do the deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been good because he was he was a tremendous fighter.
Yeah, he was a good fight. Yeah. Tough guy, man. Tough guy.
He's still in jail.
Yeah.
He's still in jail.
In Morocco or something, right?
Yeah. So they tried him in Morocco. And for anybody that doesn't know, what happened with this guy is he fought in the UFC once, and then he got caught doing the biggest bank robbery, right? They robbed a vault or something crazy. It was the biggest in Europe, right? In the history of Europe, like London, all that stuff. They sold hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever it was. I don't know, it was in pounds or whatever. They stole a ton. And then he went to Morocco because it's a non-extradite, and he lived in a mansion and had, he just went crazy, living like Ferraris and, Lamborghinis and all that stuff. And then he finally got busted. I think they tracked him by cell phone. That's how they found out that he was part of the robbery.
They still haven't got the money either. I don't think they ever got the money back.
Yeah, there was like 30 or 40 million bucks that's still missing. So hopefully he's got to hit.
I'm sure it's not missing. I'm sure just they don't know where it's at.
I hope when he gets out, he has it.
Yeah.
Like to root for him.
I know. Hey, right? Like no one.
Because he lost his whole career, right? A couple of mistakes, you lose your entire life.
Yeah, you lose your freedom. Like who? I mean, money's great, but not being in jail is greater.
I was talking to Dana recently, and we were talking about money, and he's like, "That's not it for me. That doesn't do it."
Yeah.
And I said, at this point, it's a way for you to keep score. Right, that way you win when it's like, how much money do you need? Like he's got, I don't know how much. But
doing all right.
He doesn't have to worry about money anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. Like the things that you can buy with it don't, they don't give you the satisfaction that you think they got. He does a ton of work with charities and stuff that I'm not going to get into his business, but he does more stuff to help people.
Yeah.
Like a ton of stuff. And nobody, he doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't, I know just from being as friendly with him as I am, but he does a lot of good stuff. He's an unbelievably generous person. We went to a restaurant the other night. He came into Boston and did they inducted him to the Sports Museum Hall of Fame. So
nice.
Like Doc Rivers and Dennis Eckerlees and one of the whole gang of people. So they did it at the Garden, and they had the whole floor of the Garden was like a bar, restaurant type. They made all kinds of seafood. It was cool. We just had when they did auctions and all this stuff. But then they had everybody go up and talk, and so we did all that. And then we went to dinner afterwards. And we went to this really, really nice restaurant, the Italian joint in the North End. We ate like kings. And at the end of the night, the guy says to Dana says, I want to check. And the kid says, oh, no, you only get inducted to the Hall of Fame once. We're not taking your money. And Dana left I don't know if he'll care. I don't think he cares. But he left him a $20,000 tip.
Oh, wow.
$20,000, yeah. I mean,
it's about as generous as it gets.
He said split it with everybody. So the dishwashers, everybody got whatever. I don't know how many of them they were, but just he's crazy.
Wow, well, that's a nice person to do that. That's not everybody would do that. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that have a ton of money that are just losers.
Yeah.
But just a nice thing to do. Like it changes everybody else's life, and it doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't mean anything to him. He's just being cool, and I don't know. He's got this weird relationship to money. It seems like the more he does, the more he makes. Everything he touches,
yeah, they
kill it. I'm not a huge fan of that power slap thing, but he's there.
My wife, her father lives my father-in-law lives in Vegas, right near the Red Rock Casino. And we were going on a family trip to Idaho. So we stopped in Vegas, and it was we were in there for a very short window of time. So I was like, power slap was that night. So we I tried to we just missed it. Like the event was over by the time we got there. Like the flights were delayed, but that was my plan. I wanted to go to Power Slap. I was like, this something about it. It is weird, but like it does look kind of cool. I could watch any sport, but
I love it, right? But I just don't want to love it.
I know, right?
There's no defense. There's skill involved, and there's no way to protect yourself. It's just brutal.
It's the most brutal thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then they do the reality show, the Ultimate Fighter type show, and I think they call it Road to the, I don't even know what the hell they call it, but whatever. But you listen to the guys, and I'm not making fun of them, but they're not the greatest guys I've ever seen in my life.
They've been slapped around.
It's just, you listen to the way they're talking, it's like, how many slaps to the head have you already had? You know what I mean? They're not, I don't know. I
was watching the last big fight they had. The dude, his name's Wolverine, I think. The dude's got a chin because he was taking some shots and not going out. The end of the fight, his cheek was like out to the side of his head so far. I was like,
he broke his eye socket.
Oh my God, like brutal. But hey, to each their own. I wanted to see it, but I would watch it 100%. Like I wouldn't do it.
I heard Massachusetts is going to legalize it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the rumor is on the street that they're coming in. Which I'll definitely go. But
Joe, you're going to be having grappling matches, power slap matches, you name it. Get him in there.
What? Have you been watching? Have you seen the BKFC?
Yeah.
The bare knuckle. I love that.
Yeah, the bare knuckle's great.
Is our commentator. Sean commentates those shows too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's full time with them. Like he said, anytime they have a show that's conflict with yours, I have to go with them because they pay me my living.
Yeah.
But he goes, I'll definitely do yours other than that. So he's the best, right? That was one of the things when we did the deal with the UFC and we got the money from them, and we negotiated a fair deal for us, and I think probably a little bit more than they would have liked to start. But I spent all the money. I went and got Sean Wheelock. I brought Michelle Watterson.
Yeah, Karate Hottie was there at the first one I went to.
Yeah, I didn't try to skimp and try to take some of that money for myself. I just said we're going to spend it all on production and do it right. So Wheelock, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 in the business, right? I think he's as good as Daniel Cormier or any of those guys. I don't think he's as good as Rogan because Rogan's the best from a fighting perspective, right? So he gets the fight part of it. But what Sean does, his role, he does it better than anybody.
Yeah.
And he's just incredible. He's a super, super nice guy, and he's an incredible commentator. And, I tell him all the time, I'm like, you're the star of the show. We do a 2-hour show, and you're the guy that walks us through everything that happens.
You're the guide.
And, not only does he keep the flow of the show going, he makes it interesting, but he knows a lot about the fights. He does that Rogan role also. He does a lot of that himself, which most guys can either do one or the other. He does both tremendously, like seamlessly. So we had Randy Costa do a couple of them with us, and then we just used Rico DeShula for the last one. I think I'm going to use Rico again for the next
one. Nice.
I think he does a really good job. He knows the fighters. He knows the local guys. He's got a ton of national exposure too. He knows a lot of the guys from all the other camps from training around and all that stuff. And
everyone wants to hear like a fighter's perspective too. Like when you get that in there, like it does, it makes a difference for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I like him a lot. I love Michelle. I love Randy. I thought they both did a really good job. I know Randy's busy with his bare knuckle fighting stuff.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I love her. She just does a tremendous job. And I think, Randy's local. I'm sorry, not Randy. Rico's local. And, I think we're going to give him another shot. At least bring him in for one.
Oh, hell yeah.
Maybe use Michelle for the other ones and kind of go back and forth. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for this next one. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I started the keto diet today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Did you see how much weight he lost?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
it's crazy. So I did it. He called me up. We had a $10,000 bet that I could make. When I say a bet, he said he'd give me $10,000. He said he'd give me $10,000 if I could make 208 within like 3 months.
Okay.
So which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I had the fight, and what happens is we get there on Wednesday to set the fights up and do all the stuff that needs to be done, and then the fight is Friday night, and then 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday I go home. But rather than try to eat like a keto diet, it's real strict and all that stuff. And I'm not a big diet guy, but it works, right? So that's the only reason why I did it. I lost like 32 pounds. But then what happens is we get to the week of the fight, that Wednesday, and I got to feed everybody. And all my guys, we're a team, right? So I feed everybody. And I don't want to buy pizza for everybody else and then get myself something.
You got a salad.
Like, you know what? I'm dying for pizza anyways. I'm just gonna eat pizza, and I'll eat from Wednesday till Monday. You know,
yeah.
Monday morning I'll get up and I'll go right back on the keto.
Oh, hell yeah!
So that was this last time. The last fight was in September. So I ate pizza on Wednesday, and I haven't stopped eating it since.
I had a few pizzas this weekend myself. I got you.
I gained the 32 pounds back, and fat as a horse. And so it's got nothing to do with New Year's Day. It's just got the fact that we have a fight in six weeks, and I don't want to be the fattest guy there. So I'm back on the keto.
Yeah.
I'll lose 30 something pounds between now and then.
Yeah.
And this time I plan on keeping it off.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
But,
Joe, listen, I gotta wrap this up, but before we go, I want to plug your fight. So February 9th, Shriners Auditorium. What time do the doors open?
So the doors open at 6. The first grappling match will go off at 6:30, and then we'll start. The fight's probably 7:30.
Okay, amazing. Guys, if you're listening to this show, if you're watching this show, go to these fights because they're amazing. Joe's a great guy. I'm glad he was so gracious with his time and did this interview today. But yeah, and I can say from personal experience, Combat FC is a great time. Bring your girlfriend, bring your boyfriend, whoever. Go to this show. It's going to be a great one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you so much. Guys, this has been the Barn Burner broadcast. Thank you for coming.